And we're live. Welcome, everyone. I'm Debra Eckerling. I'm the author of Your Goal Guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals, and founder of the Deb Method. And we're here for Goal Chat Live. And I'm so excited because we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is talking. And those who know me are like, of course you are, Deb. But we had such a vibrant Goal Chat last night. For those who don't know, I lead the Goal Chat Twitter chat Sundays at 7 p.m. and everybody shares wins and posts their goals, and then we dive into a special topic. So here on Goal Chat Live, we get to continue the conversation. And today is especially awesome because Jim Fuhs, who's one of my Goal Chat regulars, is joining me today to talk about speaking. So welcome, Jim. Thank you so much for joining in today.
Thank you for having me, Deb. It's a pleasure and an honor to join you. And you're right. It's something that I think we all want to be speakers. Well, maybe not everyone, right? In fact, sometimes I say, isn't it one of the most scariest things that people have to do is to speak in public? And so, but I think it's something that I enjoy. I think you enjoy it. And I guess the question is, people say, do you get nervous? I think the nerves are more, you know, as you get comfortable with it, it's more about the nerves of maybe messing up. But I think if you're confident in your material, at least for me, I don't know that I get nervous per se. I think it's more like thinking like I'm going to trip or the tech's not going to work. But as far as the topic, I don't think I'm ever nervous if I'm talking about something that I enjoy. Would you agree or?
Oh, I feel like I should say I get nervous, but I don't think I do. Because I'm one of those people who's totally fueled by the energy that comes with talking. And we were talking about this before. I did competitive public speaking a little in high school and all through college. And that was my social life, going places to talk on the weekends. I mean, can you
Right.
imagine that? And I am Facebook friends with some of my teammates. So that, you know, everybody has their club or their sport. My sport was talking. And one of the things that I tell basically anyone who will listen is, what is one of the best skills you can develop young? And I'm talking young, like kid, but writing is super important, but the ability to articulate, to verbalize the things you know, the things you feel, you get that down early, and it's going to help you everywhere in everything, in business, life, school, etc. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it really helps you develop your self-confidence, and I think there's so many tools and organizations, and I'm excited we'll be talking about that tonight.
Well, I think because we kind of jumped into this already, but so we're going to go through the questions we discussed last night, and then we're going to tangent because that's what we do. But the first one we kind of answered is, why speaking such a valuable asset, no matter what your business? And I think especially now when so many people we're secluded, but we're not secluded because we're connected. And if you didn't have sharp speaking skills before, you better have it now, whether you're the one speaking or you're participating in mixers or networking events or what have you, you're going to be talking. So why not? And then why not do it well? And then, of course, the better you can articulate what you do, how you help, your connection to the greater good of the world, the better you're going to be able to connect to others. So those are my, I guess, more like 5 cents. So what do you think?
Absolutely. I think even as an example, we talk about, if you want to call it Zoom fatigue, that's one thing, but the reality is so many people are now having to communicate on Zoom. If people are really running meetings and events properly, there's also that time constraint. So you have to get even better now because, in a sense, okay, it's your turn to talk. You got 60 seconds to get your point across. So whether it's practicing, as I like to call it, your elevator pitch, or I like how a Sufit talks about, you're basically taking the stage, because if there's 5 accountants, say for an example, all in a group that is giving their 60 second, all they say is, I'm so and so, I'm an accountant. No, I'm so. It's like they're not going to be memorable. So speaking and practicing speaking and thinking about how are you telling your story, what's going to make me want to do more business with you, learn more about you, that's where it's so important. And even just understanding, little things like, and I know you can't necessarily like right now because of the camera angle, but like I'm moving my hands, right? It's those gestures and things that we can't necessarily see on camera. But if we're going to be presenting virtually, we have to start thinking about, well, if I really want to get my point across, how do I do that? So I think it's become even more of an asset because of, the current situation where we have to get comfortable speaking online because it's different. You can't always see people's reactions because, like right now, I'm looking at the camera because if I look at you on the screen, then it looks like I'm either not paying attention or I'm looking down. And those are just little things that we have to, practice to get comfortable with.
I liked it on Skype because on Skype you could put the other person's face like right underneath the camera. That way you're talking to them. And I think I'm like half looking at you, half looking at the universe that is what
Right.
our people, right? And it really, and it's also different because we're talking to each other and we're talking to an audience. When I lead workshops, it's a much different and in some ways better dynamic because, and I love it when I do my goal setting workshops. I get to like laser coach and solve people's problems, and it's so much fun for me. And here it's just the matter of, okay, we know this stuff. We want to help you. And if you are watching and you want to chime in about why you think speaking is so important, please share your thoughts in the comments because we want this to be an interactive experience as well. But yeah, you can't, I think like at least every week, several times, I think, thank goodness for technology because boy, would we be screwed right now if we didn't have it.
Yes. That's definitely true. That's something, we would have never have dreamed 20 plus years ago that we would be able to do what we're doing right now because it was in its very early infancy and you had to have a ton of money to be able to do what we're doing right now for, basically as long as you have good internet, a camera, a great program like StreamYard, you can go live and reach, literally millions if everybody wanted to tune at the same time. And some people get that sort of viewership, especially on things. I think the other thing too, and I love how you brought up the teaching aspect, because one of the things that I found, I joined Toastmasters about a year and a half ago, and I know we talked before how we both had previous experience with speaking. I took a Dale Carnegie course in college on human relations and public speaking. But what we forget about, and what Toastmasters reminded me of, is that when you stand in front of a class, or in this case, like a virtual class, you have to remember as much as you know that information, you've got to act like this is the first time you've ever given it. You've got to remember that excitement because if you come across, it's that whole thing, right? You can fall into a routine of like, oh, I'm just going through my slides. You're going to lose your audience. And so I think that's where Toastmasters helped me because it made me think like, oh, yeah, I have to think about all those little things that I maybe wasn't thinking about before because you don't always get that audience feedback, especially when you're the presenter to the students. I mean, what do you think? You've had that same sort of issue?
Well, not really. I just love it.
Right.
Well, you were talking about elevator pitches before, and I help people figure out what they want and how to get it through my book, through my courses, my workshops, and I know it is me, but I don't think I've ever met anyone as enthusiastic about goals, which is good, right? Because that's
Right.
my niche thing. And whether I'm working one-on-one with a client or with a group, I love it or even chatting with a friend and I go into coach mode. When they're struggling and I say, well, why don't you do that? And they're like, oh my goodness, we've been talking for 20 minutes. I've been struggling for months or longer trying to figure out my mission. I mean, that's where I get my joy, my energy from, is that feedback, the ability to help and say, well, if you tried this, maybe that will work better for you. They're like, so yeah, I feed off the audience. It is more challenging when it is just me talking, which is why I prefer the interactive workshops. But there are so many opportunities now doing summits, and some are pre-recorded, some are Q&As, and it's just whether you've thought about speaking or not, if you're a professional, you need to be thinking about speaking and finding little ways to just, and we'll go into this more a little bit later, but finding little ways to get out of your shell and start speaking, communicating. And if it starts with you just brainstorming, writing down all the things that make you unique, and then go like, oh, that one, that's the one that really sets me. And then the more you do that, the better you're able to hone in on the thing that is your passion. I mean, I can literally do hours on goals. We've known each other for a while. You're not surprised.
Right.
And now I'm going to ask you. So when someone asks you for your elevator, what do you say?
Well, it's evolved. I mean, so I work, I just like you talk about goals, I also believe that part of self-improvement is we have to have a coach. We need that unbiased outsider that's going to help us get there. And so I worked with Angus Nelson. And so where before I might say I'm a digital marketer, I say, well, now I do marketing the Marine Corps way. And people are like, oh, well, what does that mean? And it's like, it's strategic, precise, it's surgical. And I talk about the Marine Corps' 5-paragraph order, which, we look at your situation, your mission, how we're going to execute your plan, what are the resources, the admin and logistics, and then the command and control, or how are we going to keep that conversation going? As far as what I do now, right, I'm a consultant. I'm a in the digital space, I'm a speaker, I'm a podcaster, a live streamer, and a remote live stream producer. So yeah, it's a lot of crazy stuff, but it all still really fits together, because ultimately what I like to do is talk about digital marketing. And just like you, I love helping people succeed. All right. It's not so much about the money. I kind of feel like if you do what you love, like the money will come. I don't look like, oh, if I don't have the money, I'm not going to do it. And so I think for me, right, I get excited when I kind of get to like help someone solve a problem when it comes to marketing, because it's really just like you have said, it's kind of that whole aspect of it's so fun when you can see, in a sense, what maybe's been in front of them that whole time, but they just needed someone else to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And when the light bulb goes, I was like, oh my gosh, that I never thought of that. And so I'm with you there.
And so we need a little bit more backstory, because I love that you embrace your Marine and you make that work for you. But how did you go from Marine to marketer? Is that like the name of your biography someday?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Well, I think the thing is, right, I've actually, the end of this month will be exactly 11 years since I retired. Now, mind you, I was a double major in business at Old Dominion University as an undergrad, 3 hours short of a minor. So I've always had a business mindset. And then even in the military, I was in finance, logistics, contracting. So I always kind of was around it. But then, it was kind of that when I first retired, like, well, what is it I really want to do when I grow up? Do I want to stay in the government field? But I just wasn't getting the satisfaction. And once I, kind of saw how marketing worked and how you could help people and get, I just really enjoy that. I enjoy helping people. I think it goes back to, even being a part of sports teams, or being, a coach of teams. You like working with people. And I think maybe for you as well, I love working for myself, because my successes and my failures are because of me. But where I had struggled was because as a Marine, right? I mean, and I joined the Marines in high school. So I went from, basically from private to lieutenant colonel. So it's definitely a part of me. And so I think I struggled with, well, I don't want to always be telling people like, oh, I was in the Marines. I wanted to just be accepted as you want to call it a civilian. But then I realized it's a part of me. It always will be. And so by embracing that, it's just much easier because it gets me back to the mindset that I had, as a Marine officer. Very, very focused, very system driven, and let's get things done. I mean, my frustration becomes when people take a long time to make a decision. Because look, let's just go. We got to go. Time is money. It's one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
Far Side cartoons when Einstein discovers that time is money. Uh,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, and one thing that you talked about, and it's, the D in the Deb method is determine your mission. So it's really about taking what you want, who you are now, embracing your skills, figuring out where you want to go. And then from that, you have your mission and your motto. And everything that you do inadvertently is exactly what you did to create the who you are and moving forward, which is wonderful. See, I do what I do because, and you probably are very similar. I think everybody should be happy, and to be happy, you really need to hone in on what that means for you, so you can make a plan
Right.
and get there.
And I think also, to your point, right? It's about what makes you happy, not what makes other people happy. And I think that's where people struggle, right? Or we run into the proverbial imposter syndrome, especially I would say in speaking. It's like, oh, I'm not good enough to speak, or oh, I'm going to mess up and they're going to notice. And the only person that's really noticing is probably you. And maybe
Right?
maybe a couple people out there that are like, kind of like the grammar police, right? They
Mm-hmm.
they might notice some things, but most people, if you're passionate, you're telling a story and they can connect with you, they're going to forget about all that. And I think, especially early on, that's something that you have to really, really think about.
And jumping ahead, and then we'll jump backwards again, is just something else we were talking about at the chat, is that you can write out your story if you're going to speak, but when you're speaking, if you can help it, don't read. I mean, write it out so you have it in practice, but bullets and PowerPoints are good for me too. And sometimes I'll skip around when I'm doing my presentations because I get excited and move forward. Again, shocking. Uh, but when you have bullet points to keep you, oh, I want to be sure to tell this story at this point, or that story at that point, or this is a great example of that. So you have the reminders. I mean, Deb method is DEB. I can probably do it in my sleep. But to have that structure, which whatever it is that you do that you teach, it's going to come across a lot better, more organized, and you're going to be a lot more interesting than if you're reading something. If you're reading something, you can't make good eye contact. You're not going to connect with the audience, and you're not going to get that awesome energy that only comes from this stuff, right?
Right. And that's a great point. In fact, Christian Karasevich and we recently did one of our podcast episodes. We were basically, and I think sometimes even the term is used wrong. Like when you do a script for your live show or a script for your podcast, to your point, it's not about writing a movie script. It's about what are those key topics and the bullet points that you want to get across. Because if that becomes more natural than reading it line by line, and people are going to see that. And I think if you have that script or outline, if we want to go with the outline,
Mm-hmm.
you can just even use that as like, okay, these are the things I'm going to hit in order. And at least even if you can just reference it, then you'll get better. Because if you try to memorize a speech, like we had to back when we were kids, right? You had to memorize the Gettysburg Address and stuff. That's nerve-wracking. And in some aspects, I would even maybe make the argument that that's not truly learning. That's just memorization.
Memorizing.
Yeah.
Well, we have Sue. Hi, Sue Ann,
Yes,
who's
Sue.
watching, and she says, "I hope practice makes perfect." I like to think practice makes better,
Right.
because especially now, digital age, you don't have to be perfect. I
Right.
mean, I guess you should strive for perfect, but come on. and the world is a lot more forgiving now, I think, too, because everybody is jumping on. And like I said, whether you're the one who's speaking or you're at a mixer or you're an attendee who wants to ask a question, the more you do it, even if it's the questions, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Even if it's just that you've got that 15-second, 30-second, this is who I am, how I help, what I do, why I love what I do, the more you do it, whether it's to yourself or you film yourself or you buddy up and Zoom practice with someone, whatever it is, the more you do it, you will be better. And perfect is nice, but it's not necessarily realistic.
Absolutely. In fact, I think, it's really like you said, it's not so much about, practice makes perfect. It's just, practice and just work to get 1% better every time. I think even when people attempt to overcome like their fear of video, right? Just do it, right? As Brian Fanzo says, press the damn button, get on there and record it on your phone and just keep doing it over. Watch yourself, figure out what it is that you're not doing right. And maybe sometimes don't be so hard on yourself. Have somebody else watch it. Because I think we tend to be harder on ourselves than others are. And then we self-sabotage.
That is true. Okay, do you want to hear a secret?
Sure.
I know you do. I have notes all over my office, and one of them is slow down because I tend to talk really fast. So that's just another tip. If you find you tend to do certain things, then remind yourself. I mean, that's what sticky notes are for, right?
Right. Right. Absolutely. And my brother's actually watching from Reno, Nevada. So thank you for
I
joining
I, I
me.
see. As a recovering perfectionist, I can say that my life forever improved when I changed my mantra to progress, not perfection. Yes.
And then I don't know if it's my fault that he felt that way because I was the oldest. I don't know if I put a lot of pressure on my siblings growing up. So
Mm. And I had a client this afternoon, and she gets overwhelmed. She's like, Deb, it's not perfect, but it's close enough. I said, done is better than perfect, right? She said, yes. I keep hearing your voice saying that.
right.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, so the next question, and then we're going to go back into tips because we could probably do tips forever, but let's jump a little bit forward with how do you find how do you find speaking gigs? Oh yeah, I copied and pasted twice, so let's here.
Well,
I'll put
back.
it in.
Yeah,
See, God is better than perfect. We don't
that's
want
right.
perfection. We just want the realism, but I do like the right questions. So, Jim,
Right.
how do you find speaking gigs?
So back before we were in these times, uh, sometimes I would get the opportunity by being at networking events where you would get the opportunity to speak in front of the group, and then that would lead to people like, "Oh, we'd like to hear you speak more." I also think whether you're a podcaster or a live streamer, that can also give you the opportunity getting on other people's shows because you get a chance to show people what you're about. If you show, your passion, your energy. Uh, I've actually had, especially during this time, I'm actually getting ready to be a virtual speaker for a business transformation conference that's going on in South Africa. Obviously, I won't be in South Africa, but it was one of those like you talked about. We've already recorded the sessions. I'm speaking about using live video for social selling. I did one in Ireland, right? Same way, all virtual. So I think as people start to get to know you, you're going to get asked. But then also the other way is, as an example, I joined Toastmasters. You get the opportunity to enter a contest, get a chance to move up. I kind of joke. I mean, it's not really a joke. I guess I'm actually an award-winning speaker. I've won 2 trophies for being like the best evaluator in a contest evaluating other people's speeches by having to give a speech. And then I was moving up to the next level. And then all this stuff kind of stopped the contest before I could go to, in a sense, almost win the state championship. But so that's, I think part of it is just like when you see a conference, even right now, all these virtual conferences or having calls for speakers. So part of it is you probably need to do some recordings, if you haven't, of yourself speaking. So, because they're going to want, in a sense, a speaker reel. Not everybody is a member of the National Speakers Association and going to have something professional. So just work at doing something that makes sense. Maybe, use your camera on your phone on a tripod so you can get your whole view in. Use a nice lapel mic and work on something. And even better, right? If it could be what you plan to speak on is maybe what that speech is about. I know there's some, uh, there's some things that also allow you, like I think there's like e-speaking uh, groups that they're looking for speakers. Approach associations. I think even now there's associations that are meeting virtually. I actually, before this show today, I just got asked by someone through LinkedIn, and I got to look at my calendar to be on a panel, and I'm convinced, at least in my mind, that it's because I've stayed active and I'm letting myself get out there, and people are starting to be aware of me. You're going to get no's, but it's just like Colonel Sanders. How many no's did he get before he had a yes? So don't be afraid. Don't get down on yourself because you got to know. You just have to keep pushing, keep working on it, and it'll come if that's what your goal is, as Deb would tell you.
Yes, speaking goals are awesome. And a big thing that happened with me is I've been doing goal setting workshops live for years. My book came out in January. I did some workshops in bookstores, and then boom, March, everything shut down. And I actually spoke at the the Greater Los Angeles Writers Society West Coast Writers Conference, like the last weekend in February. So right before everything closed, I was speaking, and now I'm speaking at their Greater Los Angeles Writers Conference, which they were trying really hard to do in real life and ended up being virtual, but they're doing 10 days of events. It started the 8th, it goes through this Saturday, and the weekends were full days and the evenings, and it's just opportunities are endless if you know where to look for them. So I had to, I won't even say pivot. I just had to say, okay, one of my goals for years has been doing virtual speaking. Now it's the only option. So I've been doing workshops for Women's National Book Association, San Francisco chapter. I've got another workshop coming up on the 21st. Agorapulse today announced that they're doing a Social Summit LinkedIn edition. And
Yeah.
I get to talk on a subject that I've wanted to for a while. I'm doing LinkedIn goals. So it's within my niche, but I get to have a little bit of fun and explore different avenues. So I think if you're looking to speak, not everything's going to be a fit, but there are also more opportunities to be creative in what you present, so it remains exciting and fun and what have you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's a great example too. Last year when they first started doing these summits, I spoke about Twitter, and I've had an opportunity to speak about Twitter a couple times. And 4 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that would have been me, but by learning, listening to Madeline Sklar's podcast, getting involved in the community, and really understanding the power of Twitter, it's completely changed my perspective. And I think sometimes I don't realize how much I know about using Twitter now. And still sometimes feel like, oh, should I really be someone talking about it?
Yes, I'll tell you. Yes. Yeah, and I think, and we have Madeline to thank for my Twitter chat as well, because Madeline Sklar's a friend. You're one of her team people, so you're one of those. Hey, welcome to Twitter Smarter Twitter chat every Thursday.
Right.
And it's, if you want, oh, that's a whole nother conversation, but it's the sort of thing that when I started my Twitter, and I love saying that if you look at my Gold Chat account, I started in like 2012, 2013, but didn't start the chat till 3 years ago. So how long I've been like dipping my toe in the water. But even with things like podcasts and live shows, like I was a guest on a bunch of Twitter chats long before I started developing my own, even though, like I said, Goal Chat, I always knew I wanted to start it. I just waited until the timing was right. The same thing with live shows and podcasts. If you want to have a show, you can first practice, then maybe see if you have friends, reach out to your network, play, dip your toe in as a guest, and then learn a little bit more, and then see where you want to go with which format's right for you. Do you want a podcast? Do you want a live stream? Do you want a video show? Do you want all the above? You have extra time, you want to, go for it. But there's so many different formats, ways, places to get yourself out there. It's a matter of brainstorming, figuring out what the different options are. There I go, deaf methoding again. And then kind of honing in what really speaks to you, what's going to get you excited, what's going to show in what you speak.
Right. And I think, and aren't you getting ready to start a podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
I had the Guide to Goals podcast a few years ago, which has been on hiatus because the episodes are still available. And then right after COVID started, I'm like, okay, I really led myself into this one, didn't I? My new podcast is called Change Happens, and it's change happens to everyone by choice or by circumstance. It's the way in which you embrace it. So mine is stories with people who have embraced change in order to inspire others. And I was getting ready to release it, and then Brenda, my wonderful associate publisher at Mango, said, "Hey, Deb, you want to make Goal Chat a live show?" And that was actually also on my list. So Change Happens, coming soon. Goal Chat Live, happening now. It's the prioritization level. We want to do everything. We can't.
Right.
Some of us really want to do everything, but it's much better. It's like the social media platforms. Be on all of them so you have a presence. Pick your favorite one or two that you're active on a lot, and then a couple more that you're active on a little, and some that you're just there. And as you get into it, the more you learn, the more you do. And then, okay, I did my Facebook group for Write On Online for years and years, and that community is still very active and going strong long before I even started my Twitter chat. So it's incremental, but also what makes you happy, what gets you excited, because you don't want to do anything that you're not going to be enthusiastic about, because no one's going to be.
I agree 100%. And I think, even for me, getting started in video, which it's been a couple years, right? It's hard to believe how fast it flies. I didn't know that I would, be comfortable with it. I mean, I think I've been comfortable with speaking. I mean, even before I started doing live video, I was doing high school play-by-play soccer on the radio. So that was a lot of fun. And so I think that helped me get comfortable with that kind of the banter, like I prefer this as opposed to me just speaking by myself, especially when it comes to video. And even like with the podcast that, because part of it, right, we've all had these times to embrace the change. I was like, hey, now I've had the time. Christian and I worked on this podcast because now we had the time. We can't make the excuse of like, oh, well, I got to go to all these meetings, and really getting into prioritizing, in a sense of goal setting, like what really makes sense, and, whether it's writing or, putting out more content, you have to make a priority if you want to be successful.
Absolutely. And it's okay to have a couple things that you're working on. One of the panels I did for Gloss was we're talking about finding your muse. And if you've got a couple things you're working on, something is always going to be in motion. But the couple things that you want to do, just kind of like keep your journal, keep notes. And when you're ready to go forward with them, you're going to be so prepared because you've been developing it, if not in your mind, but also on paper and keeping the notes. And then then you get to like fly. You're like, okay, I'm so good. This is going to be
Right.
awesome.
Well, and
Right.
that, yeah, and it's like it's fascinating, and Tim Sohn, my co-host, and I were talking about how if we had not started this 2 years ago, right? What the amazing thing is we've gotten to the point where now we're helping other people do it, and it's actually given us, an additional way to grow our businesses that because of this, of what's gone on, because now people are like, "Oh my gosh, I want to go live, but I don't know what to do." It's like, we can help you. We've got a little experience, and where we were those people 2 years ago. And yes, Andrea, great to see you here. She was on the chat last night, and
Oh, I meant to
yeah,
click this one.
there you go. Yeah.
And Andrew is going to be on in a few weeks talking about newsletters.
Ah,
So it's
which is another thing that I actually has started. I started mine on Star Wars Day, just because I made it fun.
May the fourth
May the
be with
fourth be
you.
with you. That's actually what was the title. Happy Star Wars Day. And I think that was another thing, right? I had been making excuses, but now I look forward to it, right? It's making me do some writing. And I've even had people say, you need to turn your newsletters into blog post, right? Because they're usually about 500 words or so. Um, so there is hope, Deb, even for me. And what's funny, my brother is the writer, Greg.
Right?
He actually has been an editor. He works for the Bureau of Land Management. I think he does public affairs. I'm not sure what he does. He can't tell me. He says he'd have to do something to me. But yeah, so he's like the writer in the family, and I guess I'm the video guy.
Well, it sounds to me like your brother's got a little writing competition coming from you. Your newsletters aren't blog posts, really?
No, they're not yet.
Well, you do know that that's real simple solution. It's called copy and paste
Yes,
and
yes.
link.
Yeah, I know. See, you're giving me that goal of I have to just stop making excuses, right?
Well, it really isn't just the excuses. It's Craig's giving us thumbs up. It's what are you comfortable with? I love that you're writing more. I think it's amazing because that's people write. I think people write more than they think they write. And one of the reasons I say journaling is so wonderful for writing practice to develop your style and tone is you don't have to share it with anyone. But if you start by just writing down your thoughts and your observations, logging your activity, one day you're going to be writing like it's nothing because you've been writing like it's something. And again, practice makes better. So it's not so much about for you, I don't think it's as much of an excuse as you mean I could take 10 minutes, add a photo, and make my newsletter into a blog post? I
Right,
could totally do that. Can't you totally do that?
right. Well, and I'll tell you
I'm going to
another
haunt you.
person that helped me was Mike Alton, because I think
Mm-hmm.
there was a point where you get so worked up about SEO. He's like, no, he goes, write like you speak. And he goes, don't sit there and act like, oh, well, I've got to have these keywords and this and that. It's like, no, write like you would, just like we're having this conversation right
Mm-hmm.
now. And that's like, wow, that makes a lot of sense and is a lot more comfortable than, sitting there worrying about, like, and maybe that's the school thing, right? Because I blame it on my master's degree. I had to write a thesis, and
I
it
think
was
that's exactly
85
where the
pages,
blame should go.
right?
Because I've had some clients that I've had to kind of unteach things.
Hmm.
Like, you want to write an academic book? That's fine. But in what way is it going to be different than any other academic book that's out there? It's
Right,
your voice, it's your tone, it's your experience. That's what it's going to get people to read. Again, enthusiasm.
hmm,
If you love what you're writing, if you love what you're talking about, you can't help it. It's going to show. And
right,
the more you can sort of think about, take your introspection time and be like, okay, I love this. I'm good at it. This is why. And know that, and if you don't think you could do this, just ask me. I'll tell you, you totally can. And I'm not talking to you. I'm just like,
in
anybody
general.
who's listening, we all have that capability to be like, okay, I want to do this. What do I need to do to learn how to do this? and how can I practice to get better? And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be, you want to be, I use this example, you want to be the next top chef. Well, if you can't cook, it's going to take you longer, but you can actually put in the effort and it'll be a longer journey. But you can still put in the practice time. We all have, most of us have a little, if not a little extra time, if only from not commuting to work or not driving to networking events. There's a lot of found time. And I always say when I take my advice, I do a lot better. I had like a 15-minute window and a project I set aside an hour to do. And I said, what would I tell myself? I would tell myself to take the 15 minutes and finish later, which I totally did, except it was more like 30 and then I was running, but that's, way too much information. Find your little pockets of time and build something, whether it's speaking or social or what have you. And Andrea, I'm going to put this in: be yourself, practice, know your transitions, and then speak to the people who are there. Absolutely. And I want to jump back to this question, and anybody else who's watching wants to share. What other tips do you have for those who want to become better speakers?
I would say one of the easiest ways to get started is to join a Toastmasters group, especially right now. Even as an example, and I said I'll post it in the chat later. My Toastmasters club meets every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, virtually on Zoom. We do, prepared speeches. I'm actually giving a speech on Saturday about, actually talking about gestures. But we also do a thing called table topics, where basically it's a random topic and you just speak for 1 to 2 minutes on it. So it gets you over that fear of speaking and also helps you to speak extemporaneously. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Because that's a lot of times what we need in business anyway, is to be able to think on our feet. And I also think the Marine Corps helped me a lot with that, because we have to think quickly and decisively. There's also the ability, and one of the great things is that we have a thing, it's called pathways. So you start like at level 1 and work up to level 5. So it's kind of like it's using these building blocks, and you learn about all these little things like you were talking about with speed, right? I have to breathe. I have, it's that vocal variety, right? Don't speak monotone. It's the eye contact. It's the audience engagement, and it's a little more difficult when you're virtual because, we can't see what their reactions are to what we're saying, but we can see their comments. And so you have to learn it's okay to like look for a second so you can catch that comment. And that's also one of the things I think I like about StreamYard, right? You're able to share it to the screen. And so I think that's one that's helpful. There's also a couple of apps. I think there's one called Speakio that you can download on your iPhone, and you can just practice, and it'll actually do things like measure your pace. And it might say, hey, you're speaking too slow. And I think there may be a couple others I've heard of, but I know those are two that definitely come to mind. But yeah, there's Toastmasters is international. In fact, I want to say it's in 2 weeks. They're having their international convention virtually. So on the first day alone, they had 17,000 people sign up for it, which was like broke all kinds of records. So I'm really curious to see what platform they're going to use for it, and probably going to see if I'm going to Metricool. We're going to track the hashtag of see how many people use Twitter.
Nice. So you need to practice. You need to figure out apps. I love like I said, I actually went to a Toastmasters in LA a few years ago with a friend of mine, and it was fun. I remember doing table topics. I can't even tell you what my table topic was. It was describe your favorite pet, but I didn't have a pet. I had an electronic dog, and it was one of the early versions of the techno. So he was kind of drunk and he fell over. So I got to behold that. I don't know from where. It was fun. And you can even, practice with your family or get a group of friends together and just have everybody throw an idea in a hat and then you pull it out and you've got to just speak on something. So, and if you're comfortable or if you want to get better, absolutely Toastmasters, or Google and find best speaking tips, or just watch the people that you like and see what they do, and not emulate, but say, okay, it's sort of like when you're writing screenplays, you start by watching movies and take notes of what happens at the beats. If you're writing a novel, you want to read novels and get inspiration from it. So look at the speakers that you feel really kind of hit it out of the park, and look at what they do and see what lessons you can learn from them.
No, those are great points. In fact, and another one I would mention, I think we talked about a little bit before, is Dale Carnegie. You may have to do it online now. I'm not sure how they're handling it, but I took. They have a course that will help you overcome your fear of speaking as well, and that one's more focused on, like, getting you through where maybe you don't want to make that commitment to Toastmasters. I mean, they're all reasonable. Toastmasters is probably the most reasonable as far as affordability for people, and you can always visit a club too, remotely. And in fact, I actually was the Zoom master for your part of the country over the past week or two, when all their district leadership was going through training, because we're now in a new Toastmasters year. So that was kind of neat to meet some people from California that were in Toastmasters. And we've actually had a meeting with a club. We did a joint meeting with a club from India. So that's
Wow.
been one of the neat things about this time, is because everybody's doing these online club meetings, that you're able to go attend meetings in other places. I think we're at some point even going to have a meeting with a club from Ireland. So it's a lot of fun, right? A chance to meet people that normally you would have never been able to do, but the power of technology is allowing to, in a sense, voice our vibe, and as Brian Schulman says. But the other thing too that I like, that Toastmasters motto is, where leaders are made, because they want to help you become a leader in whatever organization or whatever level you want to get to. And everyone is so supportive. It's one of the most positive environments I've ever been around. And in our case, in our club here, such a diversity of people from all, walks of life, countries. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I think that the Toastmasters people should give you gold stars for, mentioning them so much. It goes back to, it's all about finding what works for you, what speaks to you. And there's so many Toastmasters clubs that you can search and visit the different ones until you're like, okay, these are my people. Because even in LA, we've got a ton of clubs, and I know that they all have a distinct personality. So whether you want to join them, find a buddy system, find a group, do something. But if you're watching this, you have an interest in speaking better. So, and I think now is when we should give people homework. I think that, well, we can each give a bonus goal. Do you want to go first?
Yes. The first goal would be attend a virtual Toastmasters meeting somewhere. It doesn't have to be near you. Just find one. Go to toastmasters.org and you can search for a club. Or if you'd like to attend my club's meeting, let me know. I will send you the Zoom link, and you can register and join us on Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. So I know for the West Coast people, that might be a little bit early. But I do know someone in Colorado that also, and she actually started a Toastmasters chat, Gretchen Vaughn, TM Tweet Chat, which is on Wednesdays at 3. She's created a Toastmasters chat, and they're always talking about different speaking things. So that's another great place as well. So yeah, do the Twitter chat too. That's another goal. That's a stretch goal, right? If they're not on Gold Chat, they should do TM Tweet Chat on Wednesdays.
Okay, TM Tweet Chat, check out Toastmasters, maybe even your meeting. And we'll put all the links in the comments, and it will also be in the recap, which you can find at thedebmethod.com/blog. Okay, now I feel like I need to give one more goal, which is, even before you jump into these, spend some time on your pitch. What is that one-liner about you that really is going to help you present yourself better. So figure out your one-liner, and then you can either practice it on video or to yourself or to your mirror, but really, and you don't have to dig that deep because you know what it is. But what you do need to do is give yourself the time to say, okay, I love this. My unique background is that. This is what differentiates me. So give yourself a little bit of time to play with it and make like 5 or 10 one-liners and then be like, that one, that's the me one. Okay, I think we've given people a lot of homework, which is fine because they expect it from me. Where can people find you, find your chats, find your podcasts? Go.
I will put that in the link as well, because one of the things I really love about Metricool is they have it's like Linktree, but I call it better. It's a link hub, and it has all the places you can find me, my YouTube channel, the podcast, even tomorrow, right? I'm now on Amazon Live. We're going to be doing a show on Amazon about with Jennifer Watson, who's with the Weather Channel and now with Agora Pulse, and we're going to be talking about gear you might want to buy when you have severe weather. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Wednesday is episode 99 of the Tim and Jim show at noon Eastern with Dan Holloway. And next week, episode 100 is with Andrew and Pete from jolly old England. And they've got quite the following. So excited about that. And then Thursday, right, I'm on with Christian Karasevich with Social Chatter. We're going to be talking with Rob Balasabas. And then, of course, Twitter Smarter on Thursdays, 1 o'clock for all my Twitter chat people. And also, don't forget about USA Biz Party, Gold Chat, Winning Sun Chat, Social Media Examiner Chat, all kinds of chats if you want to learn Twitter. And if you're really bored and you want to sign up for PodFest Global, you'll see me tweeting a lot there as well.
Okay, so basically you said you find all my links here,
Yeah,
but here's where they are. Love it.
That's
Spoken
right.
like a true speaker. It has in your website is Fuhsion Marketing, but spelled the way your name is spelled.
Right. .com.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in and for chiming in. I'm Debra Eckerling, again, author of Your Goal Guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals from Mango. And you can catch me actually this Wednesday. I'm on the Heart Wisdom panel at 1:30 Pacific. And the information I'll put in the link, but it's a Mango Zoom that we do that Sherry hosts every week, which I'm thrilled to be on this panel. Gold Chat every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Pacific, and I'll be back next Monday at 4 p.m. We're going to talk about persistence next week, and my guest has got quite a story. I'm not going to spoiler it, but you're definitely going to want to tune in for that. And you can read the recaps and connect with me. Find all my links on thedebmethod.com, and debmethod.com/blog has all the recaps. Okay, Jim, final thought. If we want just one thing, and you can't say Toastmasters, one thing you want people to do tonight to help their speaking.
Get in front of the mirror and give yourself a 2-minute, we'll just say a random topic. Just talk about it for 2 minutes, something that you're passionate about.
Okay, I'm going to give them the topic.
Ooh,
if you don't have something that you're passionate about, what I want you to do is open a book and pick a word and just talk about that for 2 minutes.
Good one.
That's it. Like literally, like boom, relationship. Okay, that's your bonus goal. So either talk about something you're passionate about, talk about relationship, or grab your own book and figure it out yourself. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks to everybody who was watching and chiming in today. I love seeing so many Gold Chat people here today on Gold Chat Live. Remember, whether it's speaking goals or Twitter goals or social media goals or just your life goals, you can do it. Just give yourself the time and opportunity, make a plan, and make it happen. I'm Debra Eckerling. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all soon.